Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishna Nedarim, Parak Beis, Mishna Hey. Mishna Hey. Okay, so the previous Mishnah was talking about when a person makes an unclear neder, that if they explain what they meant, we accept their explanation. Now the Mishnah is going to talk about, is going to continue that discussion about a person explaining their neder. Now, explaining meant even lahakel. If you explain that you made your neder in a way that is ineffective, we will accept that and it will be considered ineffective. So here we have some interesting cases of where a person explains how what they said, they didn't mean it to be a neder. So for instance, the Mishnah begins, Nada b'cheirim. A person made a neder through saying that something should be like cheirim. A person says, person makes a neder that this object should be chayrim. This object should be like a chayrim, right? So we had such a case like that in the previous Mishnah. A person said, this object should be like a chayrim to me, to you, whatever it is. And we said that even if now chayrim has two explanations, it could be meant chayrim to the Beis HaMikdash or chayrim to the Kohanim. And if the person means chayrim to the Beis HaMikdash, that's what he linked his neder to, that would be an effective vow. And if he linked it to the Cherem Koyanim, it would not be effective. So a person here went out and said, this object should be Cherem, the Amar, and then afterwards he clarified and he explained himself, saying, Lo nodarti ela b'chermoi shel yam. I never meant Cherem. I meant a fishing net. Because a fishing net can also be called Cherem Yam. It could also be called the chayim of the sea. A net that goes into the sea to trap fish is also referred to as chayim. There's actually a pasuk that refers to it like that. It refers to a net in the sea like that. So he says that when I said this object should be like a chayim, you know what I meant? It should be like a fishing net. Sounds a bit wild. Okay. However, the Mishnah is going to say, we accept it. That's one example. The carbon, if let's say he said this should be like a carbon. The Amar, and then he said, when I made the vow, I meant, when I said carbon, I didn't mean a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash. I meant a carbon, an offering that's given to kings. It's another way of referring to a present to a king. A carbon. Use a special word for a present to the king. So he says, I didn't mean a regular carbon. I meant a gift that you give to the king. Next example. Hare atzmi carbon. I make myself carbon. Which would be understood to mean, or could be understood to mean, I make myself like a carbon regarding this and this person that he shouldn't be able to benefit from me. V'amar, and he said, listen to this one. Lo nadarti ela be'etzem shinachli lo yisneider by. Atzmi is the word he said, right? Atzmi, which means myself. Atzmi can also mean my bone. Etzem shali. So the guy says, when I said atzmi carbon, you know what I meant? I meant that bone that I put aside to use it as a neder. What is that supposed to mean? That means that he had this bone that he set aside, right? And anytime he wanted to get a guy off his back, he would say to him, he would say, atzmi neder. Atzmi, he would say, atzmi carbon. And the guy would think that he means to say that he's making himself a carbon to him. And now he says, no, that's not really what I meant. I meant to say that my bone over there that I set aside should be a carbon, which means it was a joke. It's a joke. Or it was whatever. He was just trying to get the guy off his back. But he wasn't serious about making himself a neder, making himself like a carbon. Because he used the word atzmi, he meant to say, he explains, atzmi I don't mean in that, I didn't mean myself, I meant my bone. Next. Kainim ishti nanisli. A person says, carbon, my wife, that she should have benefit from me. Sounds like he's forbidding his wife from having any kind of benefit from him. Vaman, he said, I didn't mean my wife, my present wife. I meant my ex-wife. Okay, so even though he said, my konam ishti, my wife, carbon, my wife, okay, he says he didn't mean my present wife. He means he means his my first wife that I divorced. Okay, al kulad ein nishalom lahen. In all these cases, there is no need to have to do she'ela. There's no need to have to go ahead and ask a court to annul these vows. You know why? Because we accept this explanation. In all these cases, he's giving in this kind of far-fetched explanation of what he meant, that he didn't mean to make an neder. So if we believe him, then there's no neder here. There's just no neder. And there's no reason to have to go ahead and have to go to a basin to ask to annul it, because there's nothing here. If we wouldn't believe him, then we'd have to consider that there's a neder here. You know, he said the wording like a neder. His explanation is far-fetched. If we wouldn't believe it, we'd have here a neder. But the Mishnah is saying that for this far-fetched explanation, we do accept it. And therefore, because we accept it, there's no need to have to go to a beis and task to annul them. Okay? Now, the im nishalu, I'm just going to read the words right now. Vim nishalu. And if they asked, we punish them, umachmirin alem, and we're strict with them regarding the annulment. I thought we just said you don't have to annul it. So the explanation is like this. Up to now, the cases of the Mishnah that we had until now that we say that when the person gives us this far-fetched explanation, we accept it, is actually talking about a Talmid Chacham. It's talking about a person who wouldn't lie. He's got an interesting way of doing things, right? The way he's doing this neder is really not, as we're going to see, is not the proper way to do things, even if it's not a kosher neder. But nonetheless, if he's a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, we believe his explanation. It may be far-fetched, but because he's a person who wouldn't lie, we believe him. But let's say it's an Amoritz. Let's say it's an ignorant person who would lie. For that person, we do not accept their far-fetched explanation. And we say that, and we don't believe him. And we say that he meant to make an neder. Therefore, the Mishnah says, and the Mishnah again says it in an interesting way. V'im nishalu. Now, let's say the ignorant person who gave this explanation, if they come to ask about annulling the neder, so ein shenai son, we punish them. Now, we punish them. Punishing them has nothing to do with asking to annul the neder. Nishalin means we punish them because it means if they violate what they said, if they violate this neder that they explained in the way that they did, since we don't accept their explanation, and we say there is an effective neder here, if they violate it, we punish them. How do we punish them? We put them into chayrim. Here it means we put them into excommunication for not keeping their vow. And now, umachmirin aleyan, and we're strict with them, means, and if now, let's say, okay, they come to try to annul it, we're going to be strict with the annulment, which we had this before. What that means is, as we said, there's two ways for a beis din to annul a neder. They can either do it through charata, where the person says, I regret what I did previously. I regret it. When I did it, but now I regret it. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is where we find a Pesach. That means to say that we find some kind of unexpected consequence that comes from this neder, and we say that if this person would have known about this consequence, he never would have made the neder, and therefore the neder is considered mistaken, retroactively. Those are the two ways of going. You know, two ways is better than one way, right? If you have two ways of trying to annul the vow, that's better than only one way. And umachmi, so when the Mishnah says that in these cases, by the Amoritz, we're strict with them, means to say we're actually going to be stricter than usual with them. We're not going to accept the charata. Just a regret will not be enough basis to annul the neder. We're going to need to find a Pesach. We're going to need to find that unexpected consequence to be able to annul the vow, and that is a more difficult way of doing so. Divrei Rebbe Meir, these are the words of Rebbe Meir. So basically, according to Rebbe Meir taught us, if the Talmid Chacham is a far-fetched explanation, we believe it, and it's not a neder. If an Amoritz, an ignorant person, gives us the far-fetched explanation, we will not accept it, and we will have a neder there. And if he breaks the neder, we're going to punish him for not keeping the neder. And if he wants to annul the neder, we're going to give him we're going to give him a more difficult way of being able to attain that. That's Rebbe Meir. The Chachamim say, no, we go ahead and we find them a Pesach in any way possible. Really, what the Chachamim are saying are that even by an Amoritz, this is not a neder. It's not a neder. If they were to break it, we would not punish them for it. It's not really a neder, but we have to treat it like a neder. We have to consider it like it is a neder. And even if we treat it like it is a neder, which means that we will not punish them if they don't keep it, but they can't just go around not keeping it. They're going to have to annul it. And if they want to annul it, we'll give them the easier way to annul it also. Umalamdin Aisan, and we teach them, Kadeshalayin Kalas Reish Nedarim. We teach them, and this refers to anybody, whether it's a Talmud Chacham, the Torah scholar, or the Amaretz. We teach them that this is not the way to go. Making these kinds of funny, joking Nedarim are not the way to go. Why? So that they don't make a mockery out, so that they will not treat Nedarim lightly in the future. Basically, if you can make these kind of Nedarim, where it sounds like you're making a Nedar, but you're really not, that could actually lead to making light. In general, it'll make a joke, make a mockery out of Nedarim, and people will not be serious about them. So therefore, no matter who you are, at the end of the day, whatever status this Neder has, the Beis Din is going to warn the person and teach the person this is not the proper thing to do. Because when you do these kinds of things, it makes light of Nedarim in general. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.